She waited for me to leave for work to call a moving truck. Left a note. Loser with no future. When she arrived at the new apartment, the lease was... She waited for me to leave for work to call a moving truck. Left a note. Loser with no future. When she arrived at the new apartment, the lease was still in my name. Before I share my story, I'd love for you to comment where you're watching from, so I can get to know you better. And if you subscribe to the channel, you'll receive more inspiring stories like this one. The moment I stepped into our apartment, I knew something was wrong. The silence hit me first, that hollow, unsettling quiet that tells you something's missing. I called out Amanda's name, but only the echo of my voice bounced back from the empty walls. 12 years of marriage, and I could feel her absence in every corner of our home. The living room looked different, barren. Her collection of vintage vases that usually lined the mantelpiece was gone. The photographs of our honeymoon in Maui had vanished from the wall. I moved through the apartment like a ghost, room after room revealing more absences. The closet in our bedroom stood half empty, her clothes gone. The bathroom counter, usually cluttered with her creams and makeup, was eerily clean. Then I saw it, a folded piece of paper on the kitchen counter, my name scrawled across it in Amanda's handwriting. With trembling hands, I unfolded it. Tyler, I can't do this anymore. You're a fracasado sem perspectiva, a failure with no future. I deserve better than what you've become. Don't try to find me. The words burned into my brain. Fracasado sem perspectiva. She'd used Portuguese, a language she'd been learning for a promotion that never came through. One final dig to make sure I understood exactly how little she thought of me. I sank to the kitchen floor, the letter crumpled in my fist. The truth I'd been hiding for 3 months crashed down around me. I hadn't been going to work. There was no work to go to. The tech company where I'd spent 8 years had downsized, and I was among the first to go. Too expensive to keep, they said. Too specialized in a field that was rapidly changing. Every morning I'd put on my suit, kissed Amanda goodbye, and pretended I was heading to the office. Instead, I'd go to coffee shops, the library, anywhere with Wi-Fi where I could send out resumes and take online courses to update my skills. I'd come home at the regular time, loosening my tie as if I'd had a long day at work, and tell her about imaginary meetings and projects. I thought I was protecting her, protecting us. Amanda had always been attracted to stability, to success. When we met, I was on the rise, and she looked at me with such pride, I couldn't bear to see disappointment in her eyes. I thought I just needed a little more time to find something new before telling her. But she must have known. Looking back, the signs were there. Her growing distance, the sudden interest in our finances, the phone calls that stopped when I entered the room. I pulled myself up from the floor and noticed more evidence of her planning. The good silverware we'd received as a wedding gift, gone. The small safe where we kept our important documents was open and half empty. My phone rang, piercing the silence. It was a number I didn't recognize. Hello? My voice sounded strange, even to myself. Mr. Harrison? This is Sandra from Willow Creek Properties. I'm calling about the lease agreement for apartment 507 at the Meridian. I frowned, confused. I think you have the wrong number. I don't have any property at the Meridian. There was a pause. Sir, we have a lease agreement signed by you 3 days ago. The tenant has moved in, but there seems to be an issue with the initial payment. As the primary on the contract, you're responsible for... What tenant? I interrupted, a sickening feeling washing over me. Amanda Harrison. Your wife, correct? The application lists you as the primary leaseholder, with her as co-tenant. The room seemed to spin around me. Amanda hadn't just left. She'd used my name, my credit, to secure a new place for herself, a place I was apparently financially responsible for. Sir? Are you there? Sandra's voice seemed to come from far away. Can you text me the address? I managed to ask. 20 minutes later, I stood outside the Meridian, a gleaming high-rise with a doorman and a fountain in the lobby, a place we could never have afforded together. I watched as a moving truck pulled away, and I caught a glimpse of our coffee table being carried through the glass doors. She had planned this meticulously, right under my nose. While I was hiding my unemployment, she was orchestrating her escape. And now, I discovered, I was still legally bound to her through a contract I never signed. The cruelest part of all? She hadn't just left me. She'd made sure to leave me with the bill for her new life. The next morning, I went to Willow Creek Properties with a sense of dread coiling in my stomach. Sandra, a sympathetic woman in her 50s, pulled up the lease agreement on her computer. "Here it is, Mr. Harrison, signed and processed 3 days ago." I leaned forward, staring at the signature. It was close to mine, close enough to pass a casual inspection, but I knew I hadn't written it. "That's not my signature," I said quietly. Sandra adjusted her glasses, looking uncomfortable. "I see. Well, this is complicated. The contract has already been processed. The tenant, your wife, has already moved in." "Ex-wife," I corrected automatically, though we weren't legally divorced yet. "Can I see a copy of the application?" When she handed me the printout, I felt sick. Amanda had used all my information, my social security number, my employment details, even listing my supposed income as 20% higher than it had actually been when I was employed. She'd forged my signature on every page. "Mr. Harrison, forgetting you signed a lease is quite serious," Sandra said carefully. "I didn't forget," I replied, my voice hollow. "I never signed this. My wife did this without my knowledge or consent." Sandra's expression shifted, a mix of pity and suspicion. "That's a serious allegation. Do you want to file a report for identity theft?" I hesitated. Filing a police report against Amanda would officially end any chance of reconciliation. Not that there seemed to be much hope anyway. But something deeper held me back. Shame. I couldn't bring myself to admit to this stranger, or to the police, that my wife had not only left me, but had deceived me so thoroughly. "Let me think about it," I said finally. "In the meantime, can you tell me how much this lease is costing?" When she named the figure, I nearly choked. It was almost double our old rent, money I definitely didn't have, especially with no income. Outside the rental office, I sat in my car, trying to process everything. A quick check of our joint bank account revealed what I feared. Amanda had emptied it, leaving just enough to cover this month's rent for our old apartment. 12 years together, and she'd calculated the exact amount needed to ensure she could escape without leaving me completely homeless, at least for 30 more days. I drove to the Meridian, my mind racing. The sleek building rose before me, all glass and modern angles. The kind of place Amanda had always admired when we'd drive through the upscale part of town. I parked and approached the entrance, half expecting to be stopped by security, but the doorman just nodded politely as I walked in. I found apartment 507 and stood outside the door, heart pounding. What would I say to her? Part of me wanted to rage, to demand answers, to make her feel even a fraction of the pain and betrayal that was consuming me. Another part just wanted to understand why she couldn't have talked to me, why she felt the need to deceive me so thoroughly. I knocked. Seconds later, the door swung open and there she was. Amanda looked startled, then annoyed. "Tyler, how did you find me?" No guilt, no shame, just irritation at being discovered. "You put a lease in my name," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. "The property manager called me about the first payment." She sighed, leaning against the doorframe. "I was going to take care of that. You didn't need to come here." "Take care of it? Amanda, you forged my signature. You used my social security number, my credit history." "Lower your voice," she hissed, glancing down the hallway. "You're making a scene." "Who's at the door, Mandy?" a voice called from inside the apartment. A moment later, Vanessa, Amanda's sister, appeared beside her. Her eyes narrowed when she saw me. "Oh," she said flatly. "It's him." Vanessa had never liked me. From the day Amanda introduced us, she had made it clear that she thought her sister could do better. Now, seeing her in Amanda's new apartment, pieces fell into place. Had she helped plan this? Had they laughed about it together while I was out desperately searching for work? "Come in if you must," Amanda said reluctantly, stepping aside. "But make it quick. We're expecting the interior decorator." I stepped into what should have been an empty apartment, but was instead already half furnished. Our furniture, the pieces she'd taken, were arranged in the living area, but there were new items too. An expensive-looking sectional sofa I'd never seen before. A glass dining table that must have cost thousands. "How are you paying for all this?" I asked, gesturing around. Amanda exchanged a glance with Vanessa. "That's not your concern anymore." "It is when you've put a lease in my name," I exclaimed. "Amanda, I lost my job 3 months ago. I can't afford this place." There it was, the truth I'd been hiding, finally out in the open. Amanda didn't look surprised. "I know," she said coldly. "I found your rejection letters in your email. You lied to me for months, Tyler. I was trying to protect us. I just needed time to find something new." "Protect us?" she scoffed. "You were protecting your ego. Meanwhile, I was stuck with a husband who had no future, no prospects." Vanessa smirked. "Amanda deserves better than some unemployed loser pretending to go to work every day." Their words sliced through me. Yes, I had lied about losing my job, but what Amanda had done was on another level entirely. She hadn't just left. She had constructed an elaborate deception, forged documents, and potentially saddled me with debt I couldn't possibly handle. "You need to remove my name from this lease," I said firmly. "What you've done is illegal." Amanda crossed her arms. "And what you did, lying to your wife for months, wasn't? Go ahead, file a police report. Tell them how you deceived me about our financial situation. See how sympathetic they'll be." I stood there, trapped. She knew I wouldn't do it, couldn't do it. The shame of having to explain everything, of admitting how completely I'd been fooled, was too overwhelming. "This isn't over," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. As I turned to leave, Vanessa called after me. "Actually, Tyler, I think it is." I spent the next few days in a haze, alternating between numbness and rage. After 12 years with Amanda, I thought I knew her. Now I wondered if I'd ever really known her at all. The apartment felt hollow without her things. I kept reaching for items that weren't there anymore. The coffee mug she always used, the throw blanket that was usually draped over the couch. Their absence was a constant reminder of my new reality. I was scrolling through job listings when my phone rang. It was Margaret, Amanda's mother. "Tyler," she said, her voice clipped. "Amanda tells me you're causing problems." I almost laughed at the absurdity. "I'm causing problems. She forged my signature on a lease I can't afford, and I'm the problem. Don't be dramatic. This separation would have been clean if you'd just accepted it with dignity." Her words hit me like a slap. "You knew," I said, realization dawning. "You knew she was planning to leave." "Of course I knew. We all did." "We?" "The family. We've been helping Amanda plan her exit for months. Did you really think she could orchestrate all this on her own?" The betrayal deepened. Not just Amanda, but her entire family had been plotting behind my back. "Why?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "Why not just tell me she wanted out?" Margaret sighed, the sound laden with condescension. "Amanda needed to secure her future first. You weren't exactly providing stability, were you? She could have divorced me and taken half of everything fair and square." "Half of what, Tyler?" "Your mountain of student debt, your dwindling savings, your job prospects in an industry that's moved beyond you." She paused. Amanda deserved a clean break and a fresh start. I gripped the phone tighter. "At my expense. You should be grateful she didn't drag you through a public divorce. This way is cleaner for everyone." "Cleaner for your family's reputation, you mean?" I said bitterly. Margaret had always been concerned with appearances. Her husband was a prominent physician, and she prided herself on her daughters making appropriate matches. I had once been deemed acceptable when my career was on the rise. Clearly, that assessment had changed. "Just let her go, Tyler. Sign whatever papers come your way and move on with your life. It's over." She hung up before I could respond. I sat there, phone in hand, as memories flooded back. All those family gatherings where I'd felt subtly judged, the comments about my career that I'd dismissed as harmless small talk. The way Richard, Amanda's brother-in-law, would ask pointed questions about my financial planning. How Margaret would introduce me as Amanda's husband, rather than by my name. The signs had been there all along, if only I'd been willing to see them. A text message from an unknown number broke my reverie. "Tyler, it's Richard. We need to talk about the legal implications of the lease situation. Meet me at Westside Coffee tomorrow at 2 p.m. Richard, Vanessa's husband and a corporate attorney. What legal implications was he talking about? The rental agreement that Amanda had fraudulently signed in my name? The next day I arrived at the coffee shop 15 minutes early, my stomach in knots. Richard was already there, immaculate in his tailored suit, looking completely out of place among the casual patrons. "Tyler," he greeted me with a nod, gesturing to the chair across from him. "Sit." I did, warily. "What's this about, Richard?" He slid a folder across the table. "Amanda asked me to handle the paperwork for your separation. This outlines the division of assets and debts." I flipped it open, skimming the contents. "This says I'll continue to be responsible for our joint credit card debt that's ballooned recently because Amanda's been spending like crazy." Richard shrugged. "The debt was accumulated during your marriage. You're both technically responsible, but Amanda's income isn't sufficient to manage it." "And whose fault is that?" I countered. "She chose not to pursue her career, with my support. Now I'm left holding the bag for all our debts while she gets a fresh start." "The lease agreement complicates things," Richard said, ignoring my question. "Amanda admits she signed your name, which could be problematic legally. However, exposing this would potentially lead to fraud charges against her." I stared at him. "Are you threatening me?" "Not at all. I'm explaining the reality of the situation. A nasty legal battle benefits no one." He leaned forward. "Here's what Amanda proposes. She'll take responsibility for the lease at the Meridian if you agree to handle the outstanding credit card debt." It was a trap, and I knew it. The lease was for 1 year, $2,100 per month. The credit card debt was well over $30,000, accumulating interest daily. "Did you know?" I asked suddenly. "That she was planning to leave? That she was emptying our accounts?" Richard hesitated, then nodded. "I advised her on the financial aspects of the separation. It's nothing personal, Tyler, just business." "It's my life," I said quietly, "and you all treated it like a transaction to be managed." A flicker of something, guilt perhaps, crossed his face. "Look, I know this is difficult, but Amanda's family takes care of its own. She came to us for help and we provided it. And I was never considered part of the family, was I? Not really. You were an outsider from the beginning, Tyler. You must have known that." As I left the coffee shop, Richard's words echoed in my head. An outsider. Despite 12 years of marriage, countless family gatherings, holidays and celebrations, I had never truly been accepted. They had tolerated me while I was useful, while my career was advancing and I could provide Amanda with the lifestyle her family deemed appropriate. And when I faltered, they closed ranks, helping her discard me like an asset that had depreciated beyond value. A month after Amanda left, I had fallen into a routine of sorts. Wake up, send out resumes, attend virtual networking events, check job boards, go to sleep. Repeat. The rejections piled up, each one a fresh reminder of how the tech industry had moved on without me. My savings were dwindling rapidly, and I had exactly 3 weeks before I wouldn't be able to make rent. I was sitting in a coffee shop, laptop open to yet another rejection email, when someone touched my shoulder. "Tyler? Tyler Harrison?" I looked up to see Lauren Chen, a former colleague from my early days at the tech company. We had worked closely together for about 2 years before she left to join a smaller startup. "Lauren," I said, managing a smile. "It's been what, 4 years?" "5, actually," she said, taking the seat across from me without waiting for an invitation. Same old Lauren, direct and unassuming. "I heard about the layoffs. Were you caught in that mess?" I hesitated, then nodded. No point in hiding it anymore. 3 months ago. Her eyes widened. 3 months. "And you haven't found anything yet?" "Not for lack of trying," I said, gesturing to my laptop. "But apparently my skill set is not aligned with current market needs." Lauren snorted. "That's corporate speak for we want someone younger who'll work for less money." She studied me for a moment, then pulled out her business card. "Listen, my company is expanding our cybersecurity division. Your background would be perfect." I took the card, trying not to let hope surge too quickly. "I appreciate it, Lauren, but my experience is primarily in legacy systems. The market wants people versed in cloud security, AI implementation. And who better to integrate those new systems with existing infrastructure than someone who understands both?" she interrupted. "Tyler, half these companies are being run by kids who think everything started with the cloud. They're making rookie mistakes that someone with your background would never make." For the first time in months, I felt a flicker of possibility. You really think I'd be a good fit? I know it. Send me your resume today, and I'll put it directly on the director's desk. After Lauren left, I reworked my resume, highlighting the aspects of my experience that would translate to the newer security frameworks. I sent it off with a mixture of hope and fear, hope that this could be the break I needed, fear that it would end in yet another rejection. 3 days later, Lauren called. The director wants to meet you. How's tomorrow at 10? The interview went better than I could have hoped. The director, a no-nonsense woman named Diane, seemed genuinely impressed with my background. We need someone who understands the vulnerabilities in legacy systems that interface with cloud environments, she said. That's a rare combination these days. By the end of the meeting, she had offered me a position as a senior security consultant. The salary wasn't as high as my previous job, but it was a lifeline, a way back into the industry and, more importantly, a steady income. I was walking out of the building, still processing my good fortune, when my phone rang. It was an unfamiliar number. Mr. Harrison, this is Megan from the Meridian. We're calling about the outstanding balance on apartment 507. My stomach dropped. What outstanding balance? The rent is 2 weeks late. As the primary on the lease, you're responsible for ensuring timely payment. I closed my eyes, trying to stay calm. I understand, but I'm not the one living there. My wife is. She should be making those payments. We've attempted to contact Ms. Harrison multiple times, but she's not responding. The terms of the lease are clear. You're legally responsible for the payments. I thanked her and hung up, fury building inside me. Amanda was playing games, trying to force my hand. She knew I couldn't afford to pay for 2 apartments, especially after she had drained our joint accounts. Without giving myself time to reconsider, I drove to the Meridian. The doorman recognized me and nodded as I entered. I took the elevator to the 5th floor and knocked firmly on apartment 507. Amanda opened the door, looking surprised, then annoyed. "What are you doing here?" she demanded. "The rent is late," I said flatly. "They called me because my name is on the lease." She rolled her eyes. "It's just a misunderstanding. I'll take care of it." "Like you've been taking care of it for the past 2 weeks. They've been trying to reach you, Amanda." She stepped back, allowing me into the apartment. It looked different from my last visit, more furnished, more settled. She'd made it a home in just a month while I was still sleeping on a half-empty bed because I couldn't bring myself to replace the pillows she'd taken. "I've been busy," she said dismissively. "Besides, I thought Richard talked to you about this. You're supposed to handle the credit card debt and I'll take care of the lease." That wasn't an agreement. It was an ultimatum. "And apparently you're not holding up your end anyway." She crossed her arms. "What do you want, Tyler? Money's tight right now, you know that." I looked around at the expensive furniture, the new artwork on the walls, the designer handbag casually tossed on the counter. "Yeah, I can see you're really struggling." "Don't be petty, it doesn't suit you." I took a deep breath. "I got a job today." Something flickered across her face, surprise, maybe even a hint of disappointment. "Oh, that's good." "It is good, but it doesn't change the fact that I can't afford to subsidize your lifestyle. You need to take my name off that lease, Amanda. I mean it." She sighed, looking genuinely frustrated for the first time. "It's not that simple. My credit isn't strong enough to qualify for this place on my own. That's why I needed your name. So you forged my signature and put me on the hook for an apartment I can't afford, knowing full well I was unemployed." "I knew you'd find something eventually," she said, as if that justified everything. "You always do. You're resourceful that way." The compliment, if that's what it was, caught me off guard. After weeks of nothing but contempt from her and her family, this small acknowledgement of my capabilities was disorienting. "That doesn't make what you did okay," I said finally. "No," she agreed, surprising me further. "It doesn't. But I needed a fresh start, Tyler. After 12 years, don't I deserve that?" "We both do," I said quietly. "But not like this. Not by destroying each other." For a moment, just a moment, I saw a glimpse of the woman I had married, thoughtful, with a spark of genuine emotion in her eyes. Then it was gone, replaced by the cold calculation I'd come to recognize over the past month. "I'll figure something out about the lease," she said finally. Just give me some time. As I drove home, I realized something had shifted. The pain was still there, but alongside it was something new, a sense of possibility. The new job was part of it, but there was more. For the first time since finding that note, I was thinking about a future that wasn't defined by what I'd lost, but by what I might yet find. 6 months into my new job, life had taken on a rhythm I wouldn't have imagined possible in those dark days after Amanda left. The position at Lauren's company had evolved beyond my initial role. My experience with legacy systems had proven invaluable during a major infrastructure upgrade, and I'd been promoted to lead the integration team. I had moved out of the apartment that held too many memories and found a smaller place closer to the office. It wasn't fancy, but it was mine, a space untouched by Amanda's presence. I was reviewing system logs in my office when Lauren knocked on the doorframe. "Got a minute?" she asked, dropping into the chair across from my desk without waiting for an answer. "For you?" "Always," I replied, closing my laptop. She grinned. "Diane is impressed with the security architecture you designed for the Henderson account. So impressed that she's recommending you for the Apex project." My eyebrows shot up. "Apex? That's the biggest client we've landed in years. And it comes with a significant bonus if we meet their security benchmarks." She leaned forward. "Tyler, this could be huge for your career trajectory here." The irony wasn't lost on me. 6 months ago, I was unemployed, deceived, and abandoned. Now I was being considered for the company's most prestigious project. Life had a strange way of balancing the scales. "I don't know what to say, Lauren. Thank you for taking a chance on me." She waved away my gratitude. "I didn't take a chance. I made a calculated business decision that's paying off for everyone." She paused, studying me. "You know, you never really talk about what happened before you joined us. With your wife, I mean." I tensed. I had kept my personal life separate from work, sharing only the barest details when necessary. "Not much to tell," I said, trying to keep my tone light. She left. "It happens." Lauren's eyes narrowed. She had always been perceptive. "Tyler, we've known each other for 10 years now? I've never seen you as focused, as driven as you've been these past 6 months. That kind of motivation often comes from a deep place." I sighed, considering how much to share. "Let's just say I learned some hard lessons about who I can trust and what really matters." She nodded, accepting my vague response. "Well, whatever happened, it seems to have unlocked something in you. You're doing the best work of your career." After Lauren left, I sat back in my chair, her words echoing in my mind. The best work of my career. There was truth in that. Without Amanda's constant judgment and her family's subtle disdain, I felt free to take risks, to innovate in ways I hadn't for years. My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Melissa, Amanda's younger sister. Unlike Vanessa, Melissa had always been kind to me. "Tyler, can we meet? There's something you should know." I hesitated. I had successfully avoided Amanda and her family for months. Did I really want to reopen those wounds? But Melissa had never been part of their schemes. If she thought something was important enough to reach out after all this time, perhaps I should listen. We met at a quiet cafe the following evening. Melissa looked nervous, fidgeting with her napkin as I sat down. "Thanks for coming," she said. "I wasn't sure you would." "To be honest, neither was I admitted. "What's this about, Melissa?" She took a deep breath. "It's about Amanda. And the whole family, really." She paused, gathering her thoughts. "They're trying to drag you back in, Tyler." My stomach tightened. "What do you mean?" "Amanda's having financial troubles. That fancy apartment, the new furniture, the lifestyle she thought she deserved. She can't maintain it on her own." "That's not my problem anymore," I said, perhaps more harshly than intended. "I know," Melissa said quickly, "and it shouldn't be. But they're planning something." She lowered her voice. "Mom and Vanessa have been coaching her on how to approach you now that they know you're doing well at your new job." I felt cold. "Approach me for what?" "Money, of course." "What else?" Melissa looked genuinely disgusted. "They found out about your promotion through Richard's connections in the industry. They think you should still be supporting Amanda because, and I quote, he owes her for the years she supported his career." I almost laughed at the absurdity. I supported her just as much, if not more. I know that. I've always known that. Melissa reached across the table, briefly touching my hand. Tyler, I'm ashamed of what they did to you. The way they planned it all behind your back. The way they treated you like you were nothing but a meal ticket. Her sincerity caught me off guard. Why are you telling me this now? Because it's wrong. Because you deserve to know what you're up against. She sat back. Amanda is going to try to reconcile with you, not because she misses you or because she's sorry, but because she needs your income again. They've been strategizing like it's some kind of military operation, how to approach you, what to say, which buttons to push. I absorbed this information, feeling strangely calm. Thank you for the warning. There's more, Melissa said, looking increasingly uncomfortable. The lease at the Meridian. She never intended to take your name off it. The plan was always for you to end up responsible for it, even if she had to move out. A surge of anger flashed through me. She can't legally hold me to a contract I never signed. No, but she can make your life miserable if you try to fight it. Richard has already drafted letters threatening to expose your deception about your employment if you pursue any legal action regarding the lease. It was a clever trap. They knew I had hidden my job loss from Amanda. They were counting on my shame to keep me from fighting back. Why are they so determined to do this to me? I asked, genuinely bewildered. What did I ever do to them? Melissa's expression softened. Nothing. You did nothing wrong, Tyler. That's what makes it so terrible. They value different things. Status, money, appearances. Mum raised Amanda and Vanessa to believe their worth was tied to these things. I was lucky. I spent most of my childhood with my grandmother. She taught me different values. As we parted ways, Melissa hugged me. Be careful, Tyler. They underestimated you once. Don't let them do it again. Driving home, I felt a strange mix of emotions. Anger at the continued manipulation, gratitude to Melissa for her warning, but most surprisingly, a profound sense of clarity. For months, a small part of me had wondered if reconciliation might be possible, if Amanda and I could somehow find our way back to each other. Now I knew better. What we had wasn't love. It was a transaction, and the terms had always been set by her family. 1 year to the day after Amanda left, I received the email I had been waiting for. The building management company for the Meridian was notifying all tenants that lease renewal forms would be distributed in the coming weeks. The 12-month contract that Amanda had fraudulently signed in my name was finally approaching its end. I had spent months consulting with an attorney, carefully documenting everything, from the forged signatures to Amanda's admissions that she had signed my name without permission. I had recordings of our conversations where she acknowledged what she had done, saved text messages that corroborated my story, and a sworn statement from Melissa about the family's deliberate plan to leave me financially responsible for Amanda's new life. My lawyer was confident we had a strong case for fraud, but I had chosen not to pursue it yet. There was a cleaner solution: simply let the lease expire. Once the contract ended, I would be free of any obligation to the Meridian, and by extension to Amanda. I was drinking my morning coffee when my phone rang. Amanda's name flashed on the screen. I had been expecting this call ever since the renewal notices went out. "Hello, Amanda," I answered, keeping my voice neutral. "Tyler," she said, her tone warm and friendly, as if we were old friends catching up. "How are you? It's been a while." "I'm fine," I replied. "What do you need?" A brief pause. "Always so direct," she said with a forced laugh. "I was hoping we could meet for coffee. There are some things I'd like to discuss." "Such as the lease renewal for the Meridian?" I asked. Another pause. "Among other things, yes." I was thinking we could clear the air, talk about what happened between us. I almost admired her audacity. True to Melissa's warning, Amanda was trying to reel me back in now that she needed something. "Amanda, I'm not renewing the lease." "Tyler, please." Her voice dropped, taking on the pleading tone she had always used when she wanted something. "I know things ended badly between us, but that apartment is my home now. I can't qualify for it on my own, not yet." "That's not my problem," I said, surprised by the steadiness in my voice. "You chose to leave. You chose to forge my signature on a lease I never agreed to. Now you want me to continue being legally responsible for your home? No. "I made a mistake," she said softly. "I was confused, hurt by your deception about losing your job. I reacted badly. But haven't we both made mistakes? Don't throw away 12 years over this." A year ago, those words might have weakened my resolve. Now they only strengthened it. "Goodbye, Amanda," I said, ending the call. Within minutes, my phone was bombarded with messages, first from Amanda, then from Vanessa, and finally from Margaret. Each one more desperate than the last, each one attempting to manipulate me through guilt, anger, or hollow appeals to our past. I silenced my phone and drove to the office, where I immersed myself in the Apex project. Hours later, when I finally checked my messages, there was a new one from Richard. "This is your last opportunity to behave reasonably. If you force Amanda out of her home, there will be consequences. I have drafted a letter to your employer detailing how you misrepresented your employment status during your marriage. Do you really want them to know what kind of person they've hired?" I had expected this, the final card they thought they could play. What they didn't realize was that I had already told Lauren and Diane the full story months ago. They knew about my period of unemployment, the circumstances of my separation, everything. Their only response had been increased respect for how I had rebuilt my life. Richard's threat was empty, but it revealed just how far they were willing to go to maintain control over me. That evening, I drove to the Meridian for what I knew would be the last time. I had an appointment with the property manager to formally notify them that I would not be renewing the lease that bore my forged signature. I had brought all my documentation, prepared for a potential legal battle, but it proved unnecessary. "Mr. Harrison," the manager said after reviewing my paperwork, "given the circumstances, we won't hold you responsible for the current lease beyond its expiration date. However, we would recommend you consider filing a police report regarding the forgery." "Thank you," I said, "but that won't be necessary. I just want this chapter of my life closed." As I walked through the lobby, I saw Amanda standing near the entrance, clearly waiting for me. Her expression was a carefully crafted mask of contrition. "Tyler, please," she began as I approached. "Can we talk?" "We have nothing left to say to each other," I replied, continuing toward the door. "You can't do this to me," she said, her voice rising. "Where am I supposed to go?" I stopped and turned to face her. "That's not my concern anymore, Amanda. You made your choice a year ago when you decided I was a fracasado sem perspectiva. You didn't consider where I would go or how I would manage when you emptied our accounts and left me with nothing but a note." "That was different," she protested. "I was angry, hurt, and I was devastated," I interrupted. "But I rebuilt my life without tearing down anyone else's. You should try it sometime." Her facade cracked, revealing the calculation beneath. "My family was right about you. You're vindictive, small-minded. Your family," I said, cutting her off, "orchestrated this entire situation. They helped you plan your exit, drain our accounts, and leave me financially responsible for your new lifestyle. And now that it's falling apart, they're coaching you on how to manipulate me into continuing to support you." I shook my head. "It stops today, Amanda." Her eyes widened in shock. "How did you—" She stopped herself, realization dawning. "Melissa, she told you." "She did. Because unlike the rest of you, she has a conscience." Amanda's expression hardened. "You'll regret this. Richard can do whatever he wants," I said calmly. "I'm not afraid of him or any of you anymore." I walked out of the Meridian for the final time, feeling lighter than I had in years. The next few weeks might bring legal threats, angry calls, perhaps even attempts to undermine my career. But for the first time since finding that cruel note a year ago, I felt completely free. 3 months later, I stood in the kitchen of my new house, a modest but comfortable home in a quiet neighborhood. The morning sun streamed through the windows, warming the fresh paint on the walls. Lauren sat at the counter, sipping coffee as she reviewed the security protocols for our newest client. "These look good," she said, closing her laptop. "Diane's going to be thrilled with the encryption framework." I smiled, pouring myself another cup. "The team did great work. I just guided them." "Always deflecting praise," she teased. "One of these days, you'll have to learn to take credit where it's due." My phone buzzed with a text message. It was from Melissa. "Just heard the news about your promotion. So proud of you, Tyler. You deserve every bit of success. Lauren noticed my smile. Good news. Just a friend, I said, putting my phone away, reminding me how far I've come. And I had come far. The path hadn't been easy, but each step, each setback and triumph had brought me here, to this moment of quiet contentment. The betrayal that had once threatened to destroy me had instead forced me to rebuild stronger than before. The final papers for my divorce from Amanda had arrived yesterday, ending our marriage officially after 18 months of separation. There had been no further attempts at manipulation, no more threats from Richard. Perhaps they had finally accepted that their control over me was gone, or perhaps they had simply found someone else to target. I hoped not, for that person's sake. "What are you thinking about?" Lauren asked, her voice pulling me from my thoughts. I looked around the kitchen, my kitchen in my home, bought with my success, filled with my choices. No shadows of Amanda lingered here, no echoes of her family's judgment. "I'm thinking about new beginnings," I said, "and how sometimes the things we think will break us are actually setting us free." Lauren's smile warmed. "Well, here's to freedom then," she said, raising her coffee cup. I clinked my cup against hers, returning her smile. "To freedom, and to whatever comes next."